Men of the Mississippi, Chapter 5. Mother Earth. Like that crane. He is a very good artist with pencil and lines. The Mother Earth. Once more, Minn was a sliding chip on the slippery river. From their high skyward, crows barely noticed this too-big-for-crow food turtle. They saw things she was passing which she could not see, such as meadows sleeping with frogs, barns, caves stored with crow corn, but as tight as a clam, white houses, nests of enemies with terrible guns, and wide smooth trails where giant speed bugs rolled rabbits out neatly, flat for crows to feed on. From her low water world, Minn saw only river banks passing mile on mile, and gravel, clay, and always boulders, hazed over by wild rice on rushes or blurred by willows. The sky was wide or chopped up among trees, for this was still the north country of forests and farms. Trails unseen from the river leaped over it suddenly, and there were railroad trestles laying ladder-like shadows along the water, with dragons hurling above young men with hoots and thunder. She drifted through solid shadows of highway bridges where hissing reptiles passed. At last she found a swamp she liked, and she clung to it. Next spring the floods were so spread out that they could not tear her away. Here her carapace grew to 4 inches. The following spring a boy captured her. He carved his initials on the edge of her horny carapace, and not deeply, for he knew how tender was his own thumb under its nail. But even carved letters were outgrown, because old shields peeled off every year, leaving new shields. The old crow would not have recognized the 6-inch Minn. He soared over her swamp now and then on restless migrations. Though Minn and her river had circled some hundreds of miles, the old crow's pine was not 100 miles off, as the crow flies. He could not even remember Minn. Why should he remember a mouthful he never quite caught? And why should the almost mouthful ever remember? Thus Minn lived in the swamp she liked and grew larger still. She watched as rails and plover ran on the wet mud shores. Blue herons and bitterns waded the deep marsh. Mallard ducks swam. Minn was big enough now to even duel with ducks. All of her slowness and stately calm, Minn too was restless at times. She had her moods. As a rule, she cared little for snapper company, but Minn was changing. Strange urges took her to shore, and there she joined other snapping turtles laying on sand like flat stones, doing nothing at all. Though she met male snappers larger than herself, she seemed to know that someday she would be larger than any mere male. She even frolicked with them in water. 2 turtles faced each other in one game, snorting out bubble streams. Again, in games of tag, several snappers bit at feet, tails, jaws, in good-humored confusion, clumsily clawing at anything that came handy. Dark bodies swirled and danced in the water like pie plates being whirled in a washing machine. Greedy-eyed crows watched the churning surface, where feet and heads and tails splashed out and turned over like cogs and gears. Surely dead turtles must soon float up from those savage battles. Yet out of these ancient, mysterious games, none ever did. One morning a thick fog cloaked Minn's swamp in layers of mystery. A breeze rippled it, pried it up, lifted its veil over the rushing its tatters, and through the tatters a warm sun found a new day. A day very important for Minn now was a grown-up. 7-inch carapace for that day brought a new urge, sending her to shore. She must find a certain place, and at the swamp's edge she splashed over driftwood limbs like a frying pan skidding across a giant washboard. She ripped herself like a frying pan on edge to slide between cattail stalks. She fought willow shoots and tamarack fronds, floundering uphill over roots. Coming to gravel and boulders, she slowed, but this was not the earth. Though turtle-sized brushes of wild strawberry plants she pushed her way, haste and determined to ever-lurching movements, until, battering down a stockard of stiff grasses, she landed bottom up in a deer trail. Minn pried herself over with her nose and put on speed. Even with her teetering limp, she was really traveling galump thump, galump thump. How could she guess that she was a bowl of eggs moving on 3 legs? She knew only that she felt like bursting. She must get there. Where? Not here, not here. Galump thump. She must keep going. Remember, she only has 3 legs, so she doesn't quite walk really very well. Oh. Here's her digging a nest for the eggs. No mere human could know why Minn stopped where she did in the trail, yet for some turtle reason, this was the very place. Her strong rear foot began scratching, scrapping, tearing away at the ground. 2 rear legs would have worked one after the other, but this one was a living spoon digging a cavity. This bowl in sandy loam would take the place of the bowl which was her body, and slanted like a dish set in a draining rack. Minn began to lay her eggs. At 6 years of age, she laid eggs in the friendly earth, foster mother of all turtles everywhere. A curious woodchuck waddled past. Minn had laid her eggs. Chickadees chirped excitedly. A buck deer, careful of tender velvet antlers and brush, leaped at her, and Minn stared blankly. That leg continued to work with a will of its own. When a white egg left her body at the base of her tail, that foot scooped it away to the side like a gentle hand. Around and around, 14 eggs were packed snugly in layers in the earthen bowl. By noon, they were covered with earth. In a few short hours, the hasty search, nest-making, and egg-laying was completed. It was up to Mother Earth now in the sun. If no harm came, Minn's first infants would hatch in 100 days. Then these swamps might know her descendants for thousands of years to come. As for Minn, it was over. And she was hungry. With never a backward glance, she started for her swampy home. The deer trail threaded its way on a hog's back, a narrow rise of ground between 2 low places. On one side lay the swamp, on the other a trout-filled stream. Along the stream came 2 boys with fishing poles and 2 rollicking dogs. The old collie paused only to sniff at Minn, wisely backing away from her hissing jaws. But the hound pup went wild. As though he had run down the mightiest game in all the North Forest, he bayed till he almost strangled. Meanwhile, he neglected to tuck up his tail. When he whirled around just right, Minn clamped down on it. The only glimpse the running boys got of her was a roundish something skidding and bumping downhill behind a yelping long young dog. Chapter 5, The Mother Earth.